Now this set of questions is just about transmission. So it's about data transmission for A-level. So the first one's talking about the relationship between a bandwidth on copper wire and the bit rate. So bit rate is the number of bits per second that can be transmitted. The bandwidth varies for mediums. So different mediums have more capacity to send data. But in this case, it's asking about the relationship, and the relationship between bandwidth and bitrate is directly proportional. So we could say that we could actually just say directly proportional, and that would get us the points. Or we could say that the greater the bandwidth, the higher the bit rate. So this is one of those things that you could learn about. You could just learn. You could go away and experiment, but you could just learn this idea that it's directly proportional for the exam. So this system is affected by latency, and they want to know what latency is. So the temptation here may be just to say that it's lag. Well, it's not quite the same thing. Latency, the actual definition, we could say it's the time delay between initiation of an action and the time the effect of the action begins. So what this is the time delay between, we could say, a signal being transmitted and arriving. So remember, this is about signals. So signals being transmitted and arrived. Or we could say that it's the time taken for data that's been transmitted to arrive at the receiver. We can talk about data if we don't want to talk about signals. So we could talk about the time that a data packet takes to travel across a network and back if we wanted to. But latency in general terms is just the delay between something happening, like a button being pressed or a signal being sent, and the effect of that action happening. So it's that time delay. So it can be caused by waiting for electronic equipment, for the time for the signal to propagate across a network. If a network's particularly busy, then the latency could increase. It could be caused by interference in the communication. You'll often see this as if you've got a wireless network at home and perhaps it's either very busy or there's some interference. You might get a video or something like that pausing, or with your round circle going on, and that's a latency idea, something that's causing the signal to not be transmitted as quickly as we'd like. So then this is part of the same question. So the system uses 4 different voltage levels. So we've got a voltage level here, 0, 2, 4, and 6. And it's giving us a binary pattern for each of those levels. And we can see that we've got 2 binary bits for each pattern. So there are 2 bits there for each of these levels. There are 4 levels, and that would work quite nicely for us. So using the system, the binary pattern of this would be transmitted as the voltage sequence 260246, as shown here. And we've got a voltage versus time graph. And what precisely is the relationship between the bit rate and the baud rate. Well, a bit rate is how many bits we're sending per second. A baud rate is how many symbols we're sending. So it's the symbols or the signal change that shows the different symbols. So in this case, the bit rate is double the baud rate, because the signal change rate, every time we change the signal, we're sending 2 bits. So our baud rate and our bit rate, the bit rate is double in this case. So if we were sending 4 bits, it'd be 4 times the size, the bit rate of the baud rate. So baud rate is about signal change and about number of symbols transmitted, whereas bit rate is just about how many bits per second are sent. So there's just 1 or 2 questions on the idea of data transmission.